It seems like making bread has become the thing to do during quarantine, and I've been making bread for years, so here's my favorite bread recipe. Here's the ingredients, here's the tools that you're going to need, and let's get started. So you can take your large bowl and add in about 300 grams of water. Then you're going to add 2 tablespoons yeast, and just kind of let that sit in the water for a bit. It should start to get a little bit foamy. If it's taking a while, you can add some sugar. Just about a pinch. It doesn't have to be exact. You can mix that up, and then just let it sit for a little bit. Once like 5 or 10 minutes have gone by, you're going to add 1 teaspoon of salt. And you can again mix that up. Really get it dissolved into the water, and then you're going to start adding your flour. I'm using fancy organic bread flour. You don't have to use fancy organic bread flour, pretty much anything will work. But you're going to add your flour a little bit at a time and mix it with your fork until you start to get this like thick kind of paste that'll start to separate from the sides of the bowl like this, and you can kind of grab it and it'll stay together a little bit. Once you have this, you're going to want to start kind of kneading it inside your bowl. This bit takes a while. You don't want to be adding too much flour yet. Things are going to be pretty sticky. But after a little bit, you should start to get a shaggy lump of dough like this. And just keep working more and more of your flour into it. You can see once you kind of get a lot of the flour in, I'm starting to be a bit rougher with it. You don't have to be gentle at all. Once you have your dough starting to come together, it should look something like this, where it's still soft and squishy and it'll still kind of ooze a bit when you put it down, but it stays together as one solid lump. You can start kneading like really hard. You can do that for like 5 to 10 minutes until it starts to form a smooth mass, and you can see I go in one direction, then kind of turn it on its side and go what would have been perpendicular to that direction. When you have it looking something like this, you can stop. It'll come together in a smooth ball, and it's kind of sticky, tacky, but not like sticky. It's not going to come off and stick to your hands. So take that, let that sit for a bit, and take your bowl, wash it, and add a little bit of olive oil. Then wipe the olive oil all around the bowl and add your dough to the bowl. This is going to stop it from sticking while it rises. And you want to make sure to coat your entire ball of dough in olive oil, or else you'll get like dry spots on it and they end up weird in your final loaf. Cover it with some saran wrap, and you can put it to the side somewhere warm and kind of dry to let it rise for about an hour, maybe an hour and a half. You want it to double in size. Once your bread is done rising, you can get it back, bring it back over to your work area, and you're going to want to take off the saran wrap and get a bowl of water. The water is going to stop the dough from sticking to your hand. You don't really want to add too much more flour at this point, but the water will help. So you want to release your dough and kind of grab it at the edge and stretch it and pull the edges in towards the middle like this. So go all the way around your dough until you have like a firm kind of mass. Then you're going to want to get your smaller mixing bowl and dust the bottom of it with flour. Like the olive oil last time, this is going to stop it from sticking during the second rise. So throw your bread into the bowl with the seams facing down and dust the edges of your dough with a little bit more flour to stop it from sticking to the sides while it rises. And again, you're going to take that and set it to the side, this time for about half an hour. And you can see how much more it seems to rise now than it did the original time. While that's rising, you're going to want to get out your Dutch oven. You want a big, heavy lid with a pod. It doesn't have to be a Dutch oven, but they work the best. And make sure you have a top to it. And you want to set your oven to 460 degrees and put your Dutch oven into it on the lowest rack while it's preheating so that it gets nice and hot too. And once that's hot and your dough's done rising, you get your cutting board, and you're going to want to get a sheet of parchment paper that's bigger than your bowl. You take your paper, put it on top of the bowl, and put your cutting board on top of that. And you're going to want to lift the whole thing up off the counter and just flip it over. And your dough should release from the bowl, hopefully. If it doesn't, you can tap it a bit, kind of move it around. And you can see here I kind of missed the parchment paper a bit. And here's where I realized that. So all I did was get another bit of parchment paper and just stick it underneath. It'll work, it'll be fine. And once you have your dough on the parchment paper and your oven preheated, you want to get your Dutch oven out of it. And this thing is going to be insanely hot, so be careful. And you take your dough, lift it up by the parchment paper, and just drop it straight in. You want to be kind of quick and decisive with that, or else you might burn yourself. Then throw the top back on and toss the whole thing right back into the oven. Set your timer for 25 minutes, and now you wait. Once your 25 minutes is up, you're going to open it and you get your first peek of the bread. Look at that. So you take your lid off and put the whole thing back in the oven, still at 460, for another 10 minutes or so. This is going to let the dough kind of brown up nice. Once that 10 minutes is up, take the whole thing out. Look at that bread. I like to use a spatula and an oven mitt because this thing is still going to be super hot to get it out. And you want to let it cool on a wire rack. You're going to want to let your dough cool all the way before you cut into it, or else it gets like kind of gummy in the middle and it's just like gross. Once it's cool all the way, cut it. I like to go straight in half because it's dramatic, but you know. Look at that bread. It's a good loaf of bread.